Hey, Bunkin fans, it's Strickland, the other half of the Nice Guys on Business. Doug recently interviewed Steve Shevlin, founder and CEO of Emerging Global Services, and Steve has written an amazing report called 3 Steps to Staffing and Retaining a Winning Team, and you can get it free through a link in our show notes. Here is Doug and Steve talking a little bit more about it.
Tell me a little bit about the origin of Emerging Global and where you guys think that you've been successful when it comes to hiring and retaining people.
It's all about finding great talent. Having a successful company is all about tapping into great people.
Steve, where do you think that most people fall down on the job when it comes to not only retaining good people, but finding good people to begin with?
It has a lot to do with their own passion for their own business. And does that come through in an interview? You're interviewing them, but they're also interviewing you. They want to know, is this person passionate? I'm the owner of a company, so I'm going to be naturally excited and passionate about what I do.
So the information is in 3 Steps to Staffing and Retaining a Winning Team. And I found as I was reading the 3 steps that whether you're brick and mortar, digital, entrepreneur, or corporate leader, it actually fits into any environment. Why do you think that that is so?
Because in all those environments, you're dealing with people. And they all need to be managed. They all need to be motivated, developed, invested in. All of these things are true to every great company. Great organizations have great people behind it.
Steve, I want to ask you about 2 numbers. 1,257, which is the episode number that you're on the Nice Guys on Business. And secondly, 3, as in 3 steps to staffing and retaining a winning team. Where did you come up with the 3? And how do you know that these are like the tried and true 3?
I've been doing this for 30 plus years. And so it's a lot of sweat equity. It's a lot of hard knocks. It's a lot of work. And it is some reading and some education along the way. There's no doubt. Trial and error as well.
So check out episode 1257 on the Nice Guys on Business, where Steve and I have a conversation on everything that it takes to get and retain a quality staff. And then download his document, 3 Steps to Staffing and Retaining a Winning Team. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Thank you so much.
Broadcasting from no closer than 100 yards from their court-mandated distance from Tim Ferriss. It's the Nice Guys on Business. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
Nice Guy community, think about the transformations and the breakthroughs that you've attempted in your lifetime. What motivated you to get started and what knocked you off track? I can definitely relate to that. If you're seeking success, transformation is what is required to make it happen. Well, today, I want to share a friend of the Nice Guys community. His name is Bill Yeager. Bill is an award-winning success and transformation specialist. He's a speaker, he's an author, he's a fitness entrepreneur, and I'm pretty sure he could probably kick my ass, no doubt. Bill's programs and support have helped over 500,000 people in over 15 countries. Yeager is also the author of Unleash Your Internal Drive, Achieve Your Winning Mindset for Sustainable Weight Loss, Fitness, and a Triumphant Lifestyle. Wow. I mean, all of those things all combined together, except for the weight loss thing. I don't need that, but I definitely need some mindset adjustments. His book is a #1 international bestseller. Bill, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. And I appreciate you being here and your listeners listening in.
You guys in our Nice Guy community, you can't see this, but he is totally legit with his studio setup. He's got like an LED light behind him. He's got the wood grain wall. He's got the microphone all set up, very clean surrounding. I get the feeling that a clean studio equals a clean mind equals a really clean life. Is that true?
Oh, totally, man. And I can see on your end as well, the more organized that you can at least have in your vision. Because on the side of me over here, man, if you saw the side, if I just move the camera over, you'd be like, oh, no. I take that back, Bill.
So tell me, what got you started in this whole transformation world? I mean, I was checking out some of the photos of you on your, not only on your Facebook page, but on your website as well. And it seems like you've definitely had a career in either bodybuilding or weight training or something. So dude, explain what motivated you to make the change from that to somebody that's helping other people actually do that too.
That's a really, it's a really good question, and it's a really cool assumption, because I actually get that often. I just got that yesterday picking up my daughter from daycare, and my history really started when it goes back all the way from when I was a little kid, because I remember looking down and seeing my belly, and it was like kind of different than my friends, because mine was kind of jiggly, and my friends are all, lean, and one of them had abs. And I didn't really think about it until the more I kind of grew up, and you get into school, and you go through the grades and everything. And I just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'll be frank with you, my upbringing in my home was very traumatizing. I had a lot of, my father had more of like a dictatorship type of environment. It was fear-based parenting on his end. My mother was the opposite, but she ended up having depression. And I was in an environment where I can only define it as like a boot camp or type of, or almost like an imprisonment, and both my sisters felt in a similar way, although they were held on a pedestal. And I just went to the comfort, because when you have fear-based parenting, you typically don't have the strategies to teach your kids a more of an empowering type of mindset. So when you're getting abused, literally, you try to feel better in some way. Mm-hmm. Well, I went to the potato chips, I went to the ice cream, and I went to the pizza and whatever, and the tons of cereal when I was a kid. And I just ate my way to happiness. And as I grew up, I ended up with anxiety and depression and all this stuff. And I was a mess, man. And it wasn't until I came across Bill Phillips and the Body for Life program, where I was inspired for the first time. And I felt like there was a way out. And that was the biggest motivating factor for me. It was one, I trusted, because there was at that stage, probably year 2, back in 2001-ish, 2000, there was hundreds and hundreds of people that have transformed their bodies. And when you hear the life changes that go along with that, and you're like, wow, I could be jacked, which is a bonus, right. But I can actually feel good too. I don't know what that feels like. So I actually took the 12-week challenge. I totally messed it up around week 6. I saw my abs for the first time. And I'm like all excited and everything. And then I had this conflict that came up, and I wasn't eating the right way. I was just running and eating salads and everything. And boom, fast track 6 weeks later was heavier than when I started. And I'm like, this thing doesn't work. So I'm cleaning out my garage in the year 2001. And here I am, like 22-year-old kid. And I'm cleaning out my garage, and there was this videotape from the Body for Life program, bopped me on the head. Now I'm ticked off, and I got this lump on my head, and I'm going to throw this thing out, and I'm looking at these before and after pictures, and I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, I don't know, but it didn't work at this time. And I'm like, let me go grab a bowl of potato chips and a big sub and sit down and watch this thing. And I did for the first time, actually. And I saw how like these 10 contestants were all in a rut like I was. And I gained the belief that when somebody could actually reinvent themselves coming out of pain and coming out of a rut. And it was really cool to hear some of the things that these contestants said, because I was just like, whoa, that's me. Okay. Anxiety, depression, sadness all the time. I dislike myself. I knew nothing about self-love back then. I don't think I was loved back then. Never mind self-love. Yep. So took it again. And I was determined. I was like, this is going to change my life. And it did. In 12 weeks, I knew I was going to win. That year, I think the judges told me somewhere around 600, 700,000 entries worldwide, all these English speaking countries. And I knew I'm like, I had to, this was my way out, it was my way of living. So I did transform my freaking life, man. Started a personal training studio. And then it just took off from there. It's
amazing that 12 weeks can absolutely change your life. And there had to be a lot of motivation in that. And, let's talk to the people that are in that are in our community right now that maybe not had quite the upbringing that you did. I mean, your spark, sometimes contrast or adversity brings the best circumstances by which, the most fertile ground to make a transformation. What if you're just a normal Joe and, or Josephine, and you're not quite as living in a toxic environment as you? How does somebody get and keep, which is really the key, how do you keep that motivation coming over and over again, week after week, month after month, year after year in some cases?
Yeah, another awesome question. So when I first started my personal training business, here I am now 23 years old. I was pretty naive to think that people were going to follow the training and the nutrition principles. So I got in this thing and I'm all excited and I'm like trying to figure out how to sell people and all these other, business type of things that I got to learn. And people are sitting across from me and they invested in me and I'm like all excited. They're going to transform their lives, all of them. And then, out of like 20 people, I'm training people back to back to back. I first started to realize like, whoa, there's not everybody's following this thing. Like they're dumping all this money down. And it's like, wait, why, how come you're not showing up to training sessions? What do you mean? What happened? And you get the excuse and all this other stuff. So I'm like, there's a difference in people, there's a difference. And so I started to self-reflect a little bit. I'm like, well, what made me different, And here I am like trying to figure all this stuff out. And I started to ask my current clients who were successful. Like, I'm like, okay, what are you doing? And the patterns started to come up. And I'm like, holy moly. Okay. So I'm like limited to these 20 people, but I wanted more. So the Body for Life program had a really good community back then. So I just started asking. And these were people who were winners. These were people who were not winners. And there was just people who were transforming their lives. So I really just got so darn curious. I'm like, what makes somebody freaking successful? Because my whole passion and I believe purpose in my life is to be able to give people that gift, because I actually get something from it. I get something very powerful from it. I get to relive my own transformation through these people. If I have 50 clients right now, close to it or whatever, like every time they have a success, I'm back to 2001 and I'm there. But to answer your question, there's certain things that you need to dive into. There's certain things. So one, and you've probably seen the memes everywhere, at this stage being the year 2022, I had to look. And it's just like, you got to know your why.
Yeah.
So it's, okay. I know my why. Now what? But you got to know what you want and why you really want it. It's like, okay, that's everywhere too. Like, I tried that. I tried that when I was a kid. I tried all this other stuff and I tried making the decision, and how many times did I fail with that? And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. So now it makes sense, because once you write out your why, now you got to write it out, and that takes energy, okay, to a specific way.
Can I ask you what, just you don't have to get into the fine tuning of this, but what was your why? Because, it was your why to get out of the environment that you were in. Was your why to be healthier? Was your why to, you were just reaching the realization that you were jiggly and your friends weren't. I mean, that was only a few years before that realization happened. What was your why?
That's a great question. So if earlier I said that I wasn't even sure if I was loved as a kid. And this will also kind of lean into answering the second question too. My driving force, and I didn't realize this until after, my driving force is I just wanted to be loved. I didn't realize it. I'm like, okay, if I get jacked, if I see my abs, then I will find the right woman that will love me. And that was my driving force. So to answer your question, your other question, how does somebody who doesn't initially have that, how does somebody who wants to achieve a certain fitness goal or any goal in their life, and once you're able to define what it is specifically you want, why you want it, the why part, most people don't realize how to dive into their emotions to be able to amplify it.
Oh yeah, because it's never about it's never about how do you stop eating, how do you stop putting potato chips in your mouth? Anybody can stop putting potato chips in their mouth. The question is, how do you maintain that? And what was the reason why you were doing it to begin with? And like you said, there was probably a lot of lack of self-love that was in there. You didn't have anybody in your life that you felt really, I mean, of course your parents loved you, but they loved you in the way that they knew how to love you, and you didn't love yourself. And it's obvious that was the first step. I mean, you've gone into an environment of self-care, of personal training that it, helps you. Your evidence of the results become, I mean, that's everything. The evidence is, hey, if I work hard and I love myself, I will become thinner, or I'll become more jacked, or I'll become, I'll reach some goals doing that. I mean, it could be the same thing about somebody in business when it comes to, if I got more clients, if I got, how do you stop from making the reason I will be happy with myself when I lose weight, or I will be happy with myself when I make more money. That's only sustainable to a certain degree. You've got to really go down further, though. You've got to reach further into that, really, what's in that inner core. How do I love myself regardless of whether I'm heavy or broke or whatever? How, and it's all of a sudden when you start to do that, the problems take care of themselves when you start to love yourself, because you're not forcing yourself to a workaholism, and you're not forcing yourself into overeating to find comfort. You're finding the love from within. The challenge is, I always see this, it's like, how do you maintain it? And how do you transform? How do you even begin the process where you can, dig deep and start working closer? I'm sorry, I don't mean to take the stage at all with this. I don't know how people do it. And I'm just, you're a living example of someone that has done it. So I'm trying to get inside your head a little bit. It wasn't about the weight. It was about the stuff before it. You say, when I got abs, I would love myself. And I wanted, to a degree, just say, it's not about your abs. It's about loving yourself, regardless of whether you had the abs or not. But certainly it helps to have better abs or better body or better stop eating as much. Or so maybe just a few words on that. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, the repetition that I've come across is really, I've got this formula, and I believe it was the excitement plus the decision and the amount of action that I took place, that I moved forward with, like, all at once. So when you're excited, if you got that heightened state of emotion, and then you make a decision at the same time, and you take action.
Perfect storm, right? It's the perfect storm of transformation. It seems like that would be like the triangle of, I mean, I don't know if that's a part of your philosophy. I'm sure that those three elements are all a part of it, but is that the key to lasting transformation?
I believe it is, because that equals momentum. Where if somebody who reads this book, the point is for them to get excited, so they can create that motivation, that incredible energy, and I believe it's sustainable when you've come up with those three, that triangle, as you said, the excitement, the decision, the action, because I believe that creates a little bit of momentum. But then when you're using when you're using a process that works.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're creating even like the flywheel effect. It starts spinning faster and faster. You start getting those wins.
So funny. That's the same. We use the flywheel analogy here all the time. At the beginning, just getting that flywheel going is so hard. But once you get it going, you can really let it takes over. It takes over. You get used to, you get high on, hey, I'm about to go. I'm fortunate. I get to go hiking, or I get to go outside, or I get to go ride my bike, or it's no longer I have to work out. It's like I get to go work out right now. And you get on that flywheel, and it's like, whoa, it's pretty easy at this point. I'm assuming maintaining for you is nowhere near the challenge as it was in the beginning. And not just from an accountability perspective, but you feel better, you look better, you perform better, all of those things. Is that what happens?
Totally. Talk about performance. I became a performance like a machine. I work some pretty serious hours, and it's that sustainable energy that I have, that I can do that. I could do 16. Yesterday was a 16-hour day, and I couldn't get to sleep. I've got, this call I had to prepare for, I got to prepare for, and all these other great things that I got to prepare for yesterday. And I was just like, man, whoa. And that's sustainable energy.
How do you teach that? Do you have kids? Do you have your own kids?
I do. I've got a 23-year-old and a 4-year-old.
All right. So how do you teach that? Because that is something that they're going to see you as an example. And so that's good motivation for them, or that's at least a good role model. But how do you teach that to kids? The 23-year-old may be easier than the 4-year-old, or maybe not. Maybe the 4-year-old's like they're living it every moment. So it could be easy for them. But how do you teach that to your kids?
I think repetition is the mother of skill. And as you said, being an example, but there's also patience too. I've got my 4-year-old who, and the beauty in that age is that they're like sponges. Everything that they see and they hear, they're in that theta state. So they're like sucking it up. My daughter, she comes out with stuff. I just made a video. She wanted to do this really quick video. And I said, whatever happens if you don't believe? And she goes, well, you just got to start believing. She goes, take a deep breath. I was just like, huh? I'm like, holy moly, like she really is. So I think, to answer your question, really it's patience and repetition. Let them do what they have the capacity to do at the age that they are, and you just be supportive and allow them to grow.
So I give you an honorary doctorate, and now you're Dr. Bill Yeager instead of Bill Yeager.
Oh man,
you very, very well deserved, nicely earned. Somebody in our community is potentially a patient of Dr. Bill Yeager. What symptoms are they experiencing that you say, I have the solution that will heal you? So what are they experiencing right now, so that someone can know in my community, maybe it is time to check in with Dr. Bill?
There's so many. And one that really stands out to me is when somebody has an anxiety, or and they wake up with that anxiety. A lot of my consultations, I hear this repetition, and you start asking questions. I'm like, okay, when did it start? And usually it came from an experience that they had. It could have been it was a pretty big challenge, to say at least, some of it being trauma, but they've developed a pattern. Typically when they wake up, it starts right from the priming of their day, where they wake up and the first action or the first response to that is a disempowering one. They start saying, oh, I have to do this today. Or, oh, I got to do this. And I don't want to have this conversation with somebody. Oh, this is going to be really hard. And that develops the negative flywheel, and that'll prime your day for more anxiety, and so you want to stay in bed. And you just let those things foster, and eventually, that alarm goes off, and you have to get to whatever that responsibility it is. With their kids, I see this a lot with mothers. It's very, very sad, and you see this with all walks of life. But the beauty in that is it can get reconditioned, because that's a subconscious programming.
Advance your life 100 years. You're now at the twilight of your life. You'll probably be the guy that will live to 150. So advance your life as far down the road as you want to. You're at the twilight of your life. What would you have hoped to have accomplished over the course of career and mentoring and motivating other people?
100 years from now, 150 years from now, I would love to be on stage teaching hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people with these methods, because it's life transforming. It's life transforming. And to be able to have people not only myself, but people who have been able to go through my program and be the inspiration for other people, and to see that ripple effect. So they go home and they change their environments. They go home and they become the leader in their home to make a difference with their family. So that way it can get passed on from generation to generation. I'm fortunate enough to have been able to change the direction and the path that the generations coming in, the future generations of my last name, their patterns are completely different. But so often I hear from so many of my clients, it's generation after generation after generation, have all have had the same problems, or all have the same challenges. So my goal would be able to not only be the leader of that, but to see people create that ripple effect.
So talk about the transformations that that you would see in somebody that would be trained or mentored by you. If somebody follows your fitness principles, what do you think they could expect to find as a result, and how long does it take to get there? That's probably a loaded question.
Well, you know what? It actually is pretty well defined. I said most of my clients, in 20 years, and it doesn't mean this will never happen, but in 20 years, everybody who has actually followed the training and nutrition principles, the patterns have come where most of my clients will see, at least on average, you got the messed up weeks where, you don't see any results, but on average, it's about 0.5% of body fat a week. Now, for somebody who is 300 pounds, male, is going to have a different experience than a 160 pound female, because their body composition is different. But I like to measure it based off of body composition, because that's been the indicator of consistency. And some will lose a 1.5 in crazy situations, 2%, but that's just, it's super rare. So over time, eventually that's going to turn to, in a 12-week period, so to speak, that could be for a 300-pound person, that could be, my 300-pound clients usually lose about 60 pounds of body fat, and female clients somewhere around, 25, 30 ish, depending again on their muscle structure and everything. And, I got a course that maps this whole thing out, but really it's the book is where the power comes in, man, because that's where you can dive into where you kind of messed up from your childhood and to be able to figure it out. So when you do raise your standards, you can sustain them.
So if somebody goes over to your website, which by the way, Nice Guy Community, it's Bill Yeager, Bill Yeager's transformations.com. If you go over to that, Bill's website, you'll have access not only to the book, but will they be able to access the course from your site as well?
They can get some information on the course as well. Yeah, excellent. And they can always reach out, and myself and my team can have a conversation with them too.
Excellent. There's a contact me form directly on the homepage. So that I want to ask you, if you could, before we wrap up the interview, if you could just for a quick moment take off your fitness and trainer hat and put your business owner hat for a second, since this is a business or podcast of business and entrepreneurship. What's some of the stuff that you're still working on as a business owner that maybe it's an initiative for 2022 or maybe for the following year? What's some of the stuff that you're still working on yourself?
I actually just closed my brick and mortar studio, which I had for 20 years. We've just hit the 20-year mark, wow. Like on the month. And I took the leap. And I burnt the bridge behind me. And I said, you know what? I believe we've been testing a course model since 2018, and the success rate is dramatically different. And so I said, you know what? It's time to do it. And we moved completely virtual. Mm-hmm. So my challenge is, and I've got a coach too. I believe in coaching. My challenge is, now I'm kind of starting fresh. Yeah. I'm not that small, that big guy in that small pond anymore. Now I'm in this big pond, and how do I figure it out? So really, really, really cool question.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the biggest challenge that our entire community, those that have reached out to us and expressed, hey, this is what we're looking for. We do get a chance to handpick the guests that come on the show. We get a ton of people that apply, and there's only a very, very small percentage that actually we have 52 interview slots, and we get thousands over the course of the year. And we're excited every time that we get somebody on that talks about transformation, but somebody that actually isn't just book smart, somebody that actually has gone through the process themselves. And the fact that you're experiencing the same challenges that those in our community are experiencing when it comes to, all right, since March of 2020, a lot of people have taken the leap and now are full-time in the online space as opposed to brick and mortar or other traditional type of corporate environment. It's really challenging. Great answer. I think that we all still work, diligently to try to get over that. So every month we know we got the bills covered. We can put a little extra in the bank every month, and we got some cushion for those challenging months. Or God forbid another situation that we're dealing with right now comes along. We'll have some funds in the bank to do it. So I appreciate your honesty and sharing that with us. If somebody again wants to get a copy of Bill's book, best spot is, Bill, you plug it this time. Where do you want them to go?
www.billyeagerstransformations.com.
Excellent. Bill, thank you for sharing your message and everything you're about. I'm looking forward to hearing some great messaging from your 4-year-old. And your 4-year-old's going to be our next guest on the show. So get her lined up. And I appreciate you sharing your content with our community today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful that I've been allowed in. I appreciate it.
Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Bill Yeager. All of his information, including access to his website, his book, his courses, his programs, his contact me form, right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. They have listeners in other countries? I didn't think anyone was listening outside of their house. Except maybe their moms.